guys, I'm going to fly through these. I think I have 10 minutes and like 65 slides, so exciting. My name's Jeremy Kenisky. I'm on the executive team at Merge. If I take too long, you want to throw some at me on Twitter, you can find me there, Prof. Kenisky. You can also tweet us at Merge. So we're talking about creating the future of play and talking a little bit about our VR, AR ecosystem, the different products we have, both hardware and software. So first kind of silly question I want to ask you is how many of you remember the future? Kind of a silly question, right? I see there's a wide variety of ages in here, so probably different perspectives of what the future looked like. But you know what I mean. We're talking about things like the hoverboards, the DeLoreans, the communicators, light bikes, flying cars, robots that can speak 3,000 forms of whatever. We've got, Johnny Fives, these robots that are our friends and our helpers and things like that. Cybernetics, holodecks, holograms, interactive holograms, and then finally like being teleported and ultimately being transported to different places. So if you look at like where we are today, though, we're not that far off from these things, right? A lot of these things exist. The hoverboards of the world, these are kind of the more advanced ones, but you've seen the ones with the wheels on the sides that I can't seem to stand up on. We have DeLoreans, not quite time travel, but flying cars. Even here at CES, we've seen several flying cars being announced and autonomous taxis and things like that. Communicators, of course, have now become our Razrs and Sidekicks and now iPhones. I don't know if you guys remember this Sidekick thing, but Johnny Fives have become things like the RoboHans, Alexas, our first sentient citizens, things like this. And of course, holograms have, like Princess Leia, have now become Tupacs. So kind of interesting. So again, not that far off. And so kind of what I want to talk to you about is the way Merge sees the future and the things that we're building and sort of how we're getting there and things we're sort of learning along the way. And if you're interested in doing things like this, sort of how we are approaching it and how you might approach it too. So kind of going through a quick lineup of our products if you're not familiar so you can kind of get an idea. Looking again back on what's been presented in science fiction and sort of now what exists. We make a variety of different AR, VR goggles. So the idea of being transported somewhere is kind of this idea. Back in 2013, we released this. It's the first mobile VR headset. This is actually the second version of it, but first mobile VR headset that sort of transports you to these virtual worlds. One of the first things you do when you're in virtual reality is when someone tries it, if you've seen them, they put their hands out, right? And they want to start grabbing things. They want to either hold tools, they want to play with lightsabers, they want to touch things. And so again, in 2015, we announced a motion controller that allowed anyone with any kind of phone, with any kind of VR device to access their hands in the virtual world in a simple way. This is kind of an interesting thing that kind of speaks to the next product, but I kind of wanted to describe it. So this was presented at SIGGRAPH in 2012. And this was by Professor Hirose. He was the advisor on the project. He's kind of considered one of the grandfathers of virtual reality from the University of Tokyo. The quick concept here is, on the far left, we're kind of using haptic feedback and our visual sense to change people's perception. So if you look at the green cylinder on the left, that's underneath the table, and I would reach under and touch the green cylinder. On the top of the table, I see a cylinder on the table. And so I see a cylinder, I touch a cylinder, I feel that it's a cylinder. But then what we do is we take the screen and we then turn the cylinder into a cone. And then I reach under and I grab the cylinder and I feel like I'm grabbing a cone. So it's this idea that we can hack people's perception based on what they see and what they feel. So then moving into things like interactive holograms, we have between that research, other types of research, and then this idea, we have things like the Merge Cube, which allow you to hold holograms in your hand, which is really cool. And then just the other day, we announced this product, which is the Merge 6-off Blaster, which is the idea that I can put a phone in here in this blaster and positionally move around in an open world and play all kinds of cool games. So these are kind of our products. And so I think one thing that's interesting about Merge is, there it is a lot of us have worked in high technology for a long time, and just in the last 4 to 5 years have we been working in the kids space. And so I think what we've really tried to do is take this high technology and this research and sort of boil it down to something that anybody can understand and any kid can play with. And so I remember the first time I tried mobile AR, like in 2006 or 2007, trying it on one of the first phones that had a camera on it. It was really exciting to me. And so I think we've always looked for ways at Merge to take those ideas and deliver them to people on a scale where things like our cube are $15, where anyone can access it and anyone can play with it. So creating a kid-friendly experience. So some of the things a lot of people ask us why. You guys, I'm sure, have seen this chart. This is from Greenlight VR and Touchstone Research. A lot of people ask us why kids. If we're trying to democratize these types of technology, why do we pick kids? And I think the easy answer is because there's lots of them, and they all want it, and it's one of the largest addressable markets in the United States. So that's the easy answer. I think the harder answer is pretty much everyone on our team has kids in our demo. So I think creating things for people that you love and care about too is cool. So I'm going to quickly describe now our ecosystem and how it works. So it's really centered around the Miniverse. And so if you go to miniverse.io, it's a website that has all kinds of curated AR and VR content from developers all over the place. And so the Miniverse is the place where people go to explore these things and find these things. It's really backed up really by what's called Merge Labs. And so Merge Labs is an in-house development group that we have. And essentially, a product like the Blaster started out as 25 different products that we prototype with kids, and from hardware and software that we prototype with kids and let them sort of decide what they like and what they think is cool, and we iterate on that. I think a lot of people probably think that because you were a kid once, you know what kids like, and that's unfortunately not true. If you want to know what a kid likes, just go ask them. A lot of the things that appear in our software and hardware is from kids saying like, oh, I want to put a creature here, or I want to do this. And so a lot of those things end up going into our software and actually greatly, I think, increasing the value of the experience. The other part of the Miniverse that's important that feeds this Miniverse is a lot of the developers that work with us. So I think there's sort of three things that are important to why our development outreach has been successful. And so I'll kind of list those for you. I think one of them is a little bit intangible, and that's that a lot of us on the team have worked or run studios like these before, and so we have a lot of these connections with game developers, experience builders, things like that. The other answer that's a lot easier is we have a $1 million development fund. So we throw money at these people to build cool experiences if they have cool ideas that they need help executing. So that's everything from product, helping produce the actual stuff, to doing research and development on it, to doing marketing and stuff like that too. So we kind of take different types of publisher relationships with a lot of these studios to put these things out and get them on the Miniverse so kids can experience these things. And then really ultimately it's sort of about then the kids knowing, and ultimately not just kids, but anyone who has these products, knowing that when I'm getting these products, I know if it's an AR, VR product, I can go to the Miniverse, access the Miniverse, and get content every day that's awesome for these products. And there's always new content coming out. And then on top of that, I can sort of know what's good and what's not based on how people on the Miniverse have rated these different applications. That's kind of the idea. So I don't know how much time, probably like a minute or two. So a lot of people then ask, what does the future look like? What does it hold? So I think I have three sort of ideas that we think about when we're developing products. And the first one is not just what does a kid want to do and what's entertaining to them, but sort of what does the kid's room of the future look like? What does the kid of the future look like? And what are the things that they're doing? What do their walls turn into? What do their ceilings turn into? Does the floor become lava? Posters turning into interactive screens, windows becoming interactive screens, stuff like that. And so ultimately what we get to is like this idea that all of these objects will have digital layers. I think a lot of times people build software with the intent to make hardware obsolete or to remove hardware. But that's not really the case. Physical things aren't going away. And so all of these things will have these digital layers. And I think what's important is to really consider, they were kind of touching on it just on the last panel, you really have to design your products around the physical product and the digital product going together. I bought a pack of bicycle playing cards the other day for the house that we're at, and just so we could play cards at night. And it said on the thing, free app, and I was like, why do I need an app to play with playing cards? It just doesn't make any sense. So a lot of times those things are stamped on as an afterthought, and I think to be successful with your software development, you also have to incorporate it heavily into your product. And so then the last thing really is the future is also very spatial. And so I think you see this with some of our latest products, but especially, for example, with our 6DoF Blaster, is this idea that spatial computing is not just going to change the way we work and the way enterprise works and the way how productive we are, but it's also going to change the way kids interact with the world too. And so figuring out ways to include spatial computing into the different products that you're building and how all those products work together is really important too. So that's all I got for you. Check us out. We're in the South Hall and also here at the stands and showing off all these products. So thank you very much.